guys, I'm back again today with another reaction video, and today we're reacting to the American Civil War Oversimplified Part 1. I think there are two parts to this, and it's 29 or 30 minutes almost video, so I'm not gonna pause a lot. But before we do start, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Click that bell button to get notified whenever I do upload a video. Anyways guys, let's check this out. Trying not to pause.
By NordVPN. Click the link down below to get 70% off an annual subscription implements. Buy yourself some oat down below. This is it. New character pin. Link in the description down below.
I still went back.
Okay, Mrs. Lincoln. This is it. One last push and we're done.
Oh gosh.
9 months and 4 days ago, my father brought forth upon my mother himself and gave to her a child, conceived in a
So that's Abraham Lincoln.
and dedicated to the proposition that I will drink num-nums from a bottle and do little poo-poos in my pantses for the next 2 to 3 years. Now what is it babies do again? Oh yeah.
Oh no.
I am not touching that.
Okay, I'm loving this already.
Abraham Lincoln grew up with his relatively poor family in Kentucky,
KFC.
eventually moving to Indiana, and finally, Illinois. He read a lot of books, worked a lot of jobs, wrote some questionable poetry, and finally entered the law profession. Despite being self-taught, he turned out to be a pretty clever and astute lawyer. In one case, a guy claimed he witnessed a murder at night.
I think I remember hearing a little history about Abraham Lincoln. I think it was in a book I read or I listened to, one of those. Yeah, I think I remember some of these stuff.
And Lincoln was like, how could you have seen anything in the dark? There was a bright full moon. A what? A bright full moon. Can you say that again, please? There was a bright full moon. A dim half moon? No, a bright full moon. That's funny, because according to this almanac, there was a dim half moon that night, which makes you a liar. Well, I got a bright full moon for y'all right here. Now that's what I call a rebuttal. Lincoln and his cheekbones weren't only interested in law, however. He also dabbled in the world of politics, serving as a legislator in both local and national assemblies. And what a time it was. Not even 100 years after the Founding Fathers wrote All Men.
Are those the men on the Mount Rushmore? Because I remember the guy in the middle. I don't know their names or who they are, but they look familiar for some reason. I said I'm not gonna pause, but look at us.
Created equal. Politicians were already asking, yeah, but what does that mean exactly? It means all men. Yeah, but what does that mean exactly? And not just that. States' rights versus the federal government. What are the executive powers of the president? Is cereal a soup? The Founding Fathers left some of these questions perhaps a little too open to interpretation.
Oh God, this
and
guy.
the biggest question of them all was slavery. An ugly mark on what should have been a revolutionary new nation based on
I wanna know.
and democracy. Thomas Jefferson had written a condemnation of slavery in the Declaration of Independence, but out of fear of losing Southern states' support, it was removed. Hey guys, do you think leaving this a little vague will create any unforeseen problems in the future? Cannonball! And those unforeseen problems were now beginning to rear their ugly heads. As the nation developed, the North and the South developed along two very different lines, and two very different cultural identities emerged. Northern cities began rapidly industrializing, while the Southern climate allowed for large plantations of labor-intensive
Makes
crops.
sense.
As a result, one half of the country didn't rely on slaves, while the other half had become economically dependent on them. In 1793, Eli Whitney's cotton gin caused the slave trade in the South to explode, while in the North, a growing abolitionist movement was taking root. A general mistrust began to develop between the North and the South, as Northerners felt the South were hell-bent on expanding slavery, and fear spread throughout the South that the North wanted to take their slaves away. In 1819, there were 11 free states and 11 slave states. A perfect balance. A happy medium. A harmonious relationship. Hey guys, nice to meet you. I'm Missouri, and I would like to become the 23rd state. Hey buddy, welcome to the nation. We'll be happy to accept you as a free state. Oh no, you don't? You're trying to get one over on us. Missouri's gonna be a slave state. Okay, listen, why don't we just ask Missouri what it wants to be, and we slave state. Well, then, allow me to introduce to you the newest, freshest state on the scene.
Missouri, why?
Hey, you can't do that, and you can't have any more slave states above this line. What? The issue of slavery is solved, and it will.
I like how this is being explained because I'm intrigued and also it makes sense. Instead of like reading some historical book without like emotions, this is filled with like puns and you just get it. So it's making a lot of
Will
sense.
never come up again. A few years later, it came up again.
Oh.
You see, as America expanded westward, each new state or territory that was added threatened to upend the delicate balance between the slave and free states. If one faction managed to outnumber the other, it could gain an easy majority and force its own ideals on the opposing side, leaving a huge portion of the population feeling spiteful and oppressed. For a while, compromises kicked the can down the road and kept the volatile balance in check, as new free and slave states were roughly added in pairs. But then one loudmouth state just had to barge
The
in
freaking
and ruin
South.
everything as usual. The addition of Texas saw the United States enter into a war with Mexico, which they won, gaining a huge amount of land out west and creating even more problems. Hey guys, nice to meet you. I'm California, and I would like to become the 31st state.
So California is basically Mexico. Like in history, historically, it was Mexico.
Hey buddy, welcome to the nation. We'll be happy to accept you as a southern slave state. Oh no, you don't. You're trying to get one over on us. California's gonna be a free state. Okay,
Ooh.
listen. Why don't we just ask California what it wants to be, and we can free state?
California, please.
Well, then, allow me to introduce to you the territories of New Mexico and Utah, able to freely vote for slavery themselves. Hey, you can't do that. And we can enter Northern Territory anytime we want to recapture escaped slaves. What? The issue of slavery is solved, and it will never come up again. A few years later, it came up again.
I was
In 1854,
gonna
a Democratic
say.
senator from Illinois wanted to build a really cool choo-choo train here and proposed that the territories of Kansas and Nebraska be created open to slavery, even though they were clearly above the Missouri Compromise line. Obviously, the northern states were like, hell no. But the Southern Democrats who controlled Congress at the time were like, well, if you love liberty and democracy so much, then you should let them vote on whether slavery should be legal or not. And so it was. Huge numbers of pro and anti-slavery settlers rushed to Kansas to sway the vote in their favor. And while they were all there, they began to beat the crap out of each other. One of those settlers was a man named John Brown, a former businessman who failed at just about everything he tried and went arguably insane. He was a radical abolitionist and dedicated much of his life to the Underground Railroad and freeing slaves. One night, in revenge for an earlier raid by pro-slavery forces, he and his sons killed a number of pro-slavery settlers in the territory, helping to kickstart years of violence known as Bleeding Kansas. Kansas and Nebraska both eventually voted in favor of outlawing slavery. But from here, the tension began to grow at a rapid pace. In 1852, author Harriet Beecher Stowe penned Uncle Tom's Cabin, a best-selling novel that exposed the terrible cruelty of slavery to the world. Oh, how awful. How morally corrupt a nation must be to allow such things to happen. Your Majesty, what should we do about all the starving children working in the coal mines? Nothing! In 1854, the Republican Party was formed, and Abraham Lincoln emerged as a leading figure. Southern Democrats viewed the new Republican Party with mistrust, believing it to be radical and abolitionist. In 1856, a politician named Charles Sumter gave a speech in Congress, calling out slave-owning Democrats with fiery language. If slavery was a woman, she'd be an ugly one. And the senator from South Carolina would like to boink her. Representative Brooks, do you have a rebuttal? Oh, I have a... Senator from South Carolina would like to boink her. Representative Brooks, do you have a rebuttal? Oh, I have a rebuttal, all right. Yeah, here's a rebuttal for you.
Is he gonna show his ass? Okay, I thought.
Come on, surely this isn't allowed. I don't know. I'll have to consult the rule book.
Okay.
I can't find anything about caning a political opponent, but it says here I'm not allowed to wear a woman's underwear. Uh-oh.
What?
News of the violence on the Senate floor took the nation by storm. Southern slave owners sent Representative Brooks new canes to replace his now broken one. And on the floors of Congress, politicians carried weapons in self-defense, which is never a good sign. In 1857, the Supreme Court ruled in the Dred Scott case that all people of African descent, slave or free, could not be citizens, and therefore could not sue for their own freedom under any circumstances, undoing years of progress with the strike of a gavel. Now, within all this bitter debate over slavery, there were many nuances. North versus South, Republican versus Democrat, states versus the federal government. But let's strip all of that away. For 4 million individuals living in America, this wasn't about political intrigue or party alignment. It was about the basic human right to be free.
Exactly.
Men, women, and children were stolen from their homelands and brought to the American continent.
I know, right? Like you go to Africa and get people, and then you're like, you have the audacity, right, to go just take them uh unwillingly and then go trade them, like uh, that is just crazy.
where for generations they were considered to be property, forced to live in poverty, and work from sunrise to sunset. Plantation overseers did whatever they felt was necessary to get the most out of their slaves. Punishments were often barbaric.
Oh.
Families were regularly separated, and parents could often only watch, as their children were auctioned off,
Oh, when I watch
never to be seen
Roots
again. Thousands of slaves
crying.
took the treacherous risk of running away, and abolitionists in the North helped many escape via the Underground Railroad as bounty hunters entered the North to chase them down.
Oh.
Leading figures within the abolitionist movement included many significant free black men and women. But it's important to note that for many of the anti-slavery white individuals in the North, opposition to slavery was often an economic issue, not a moral one, as many worried large plantations would take their lands and livelihoods away.
Oh,
Abraham
wow.
Lincoln-
Think I didn't think in the economic sense. So they were just looking after themselves. They didn't really care if they were free morally. It was just for their own benefits in their pockets.
Knew that slavery was a moral evil, and he regularly spoke out against it in powerful speeches that helped him rise through the ranks of the new Republican Party. He lamented at the hypocrisy of a great American nation meant to stand as a shining beacon of freedom, while also enslaving 4 million men, women, and children. He most famously declared in 1858 that a house divided against itself cannot stand, that one day slavery in America would end. However, even Lincoln was cautious in his opposition. He didn't want to outlaw it entirely, but simply prevent its expansion, so that given enough time, he believed it would naturally die out. Thankfully, history would force his hand. In October 1859, one abolitionist decided he'd try to single-handedly take down slavery by force. Who would be crazy enough to even attempt such a thing? It's our good friend, John Brown. He planned to seize arms from an armory in the town of Harper's Ferry, free the slaves there, and continue south, inciting a major slave uprising along the way. A noble cause, a bad plan, and terrible execution. Brown's men took the armory and some hostages, but were quickly surrounded by one Robert E. Lee and his U.S. Marines. Brown was captured, and a couple of months later, he was executed for treason. Northerners sympathized with Brown, but Southerners were like, you see this? They're coming for us. Soon, there'll be 1 million John Browns. 1 million John Browns? What on earth are you thinking about? A John Brown farm? Yeah, me too. To make matters worse, new northern free states meant now the southern states really were outnumbered, and they were beginning to feel bitterly spiteful and oppressed. Further fear began to spread in the South when news broke that a relatively unknown figure had just secured the Republican Party nomination for president.
I mean, like, if they did it, like, in a morally way, like, it's not a trade-off, and they just, like, go to Africa and recruit people, just be like, hey, we're gonna take you to America to work, and we're gonna pay you, you can bring your family, then everything will be fine. But they had to go freaking kidnap those guys and bring them all across the seas and mistreat them. Like, if they left the mistreating part and the kidnapping part out of it, then it will be okay. If they did it in a moral sense, like, just be nice and ask, like, hey, you guys are huge, we need labor to build a country, you guys fit the role, you know, we're lanky, little white people, sorry, and we need some huge black people, so can you please come to our country? I feel like that would be better, right? Am I just getting crazy?
Abraham Lincoln, mostly well-liked among anti-slavery Northerners, had made some of the most powerfully worded speeches against slavery of any politician at the time. And now, there was a chance that he and his cheekbones could become president. For the South, that would be too much. In the 1860 election, Lincoln's name didn't even appear on the ballot in 10 southern states. But much to their horror, when the final results came in, Lincoln had won by an electoral college landslide. Lincoln himself tried to calm their fear. How many times do I have to tell you, I'm not going to take away your slaves? Yeah, right, Honest Abe. We've had enough of you Northerners. We're gonna go form our own country. You can't do that. Why not? Well, if you had won the election, would it be okay for us to leave? Of course not. Well, why not? Because that's not how victim mentality works. Many states felt that when they joined the
Definitely
Union,
victim
they
mentality.
always withheld the right to leave it whenever they pleased. Many people living in 19th century America often felt more loyalty to their state than to the nation. And now, with the South feeling like it had lost its voice,
That's why, like, in the States, I think it's still a little bit there. Like we have a lot of like people repping their state so much, right? It's still a thing. It's just it's not as much as it was, but it's still there. Like, hey, I'm from here, I'm from here, I'm from the West Coast, East Coast. Like, it's you're repping your state still, kind of, right?
the federal government, they were out of here. South Carolina was the first to go, and over a period of 6 months, one by one, 11 slave states officially seceded from the Union, with just 4 contested border states opting to remain. The seceding states issued a number of official documents justifying their secession. South Carolina proclaimed that it was northern states' hostility to slavery that rendered the federal government illegitimate. Mississippi declared that their position was thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery, and in a speech, the Confederate vice president stated that the new Confederate government rested upon what he called the great truth of racial inequality. Revered American generals, such as Robert E. Lee, opted to side with their states over the Union. And with all the chaos, one New York lawyer wrote that rather than a bald eagle, America's national bird should be a debilitated chicken. And hey, I kind of like that. One man, watching the crisis unfold, knew it would be his job to solve it. Lincoln was just about to hop on a train and become the President of the United States of America. Hey man, you're hella ugly. Grow a beard or something to hide that face.
So he grew a beard. There we go. That's the Lincoln we all know, right? All books and everything. That's how he looks like.
Still ugly.
Oh.
With assassination plots already underway, Lincoln had to travel to Washington, D.C. under heavy disguise and protection.
Oh, gosh.
All along the way, he received stacks of threatening letters. May the hand of the devil strike you down. You are destroying this country. Damn you, every breath you take. Love from Grandma. At his inauguration speech, Lincoln once again reiterated that no, I do not want to take away anyone's slaves. But for Lincoln, he did want to preserve the Union. He declared secession to be nothing but an illegitimate rebellion. In your hands and not in mine,
I wonder
he said,
how it
is the momentous
happened.
issue of civil war. You can have no conflict without being yourselves the aggressors. We are not enemies, but friends. It was clear Lincoln was ready and willing to get freaky and open up a can of Scatman John if he had to.
I'm
Whether-
loving Lincoln's shades. It looks like a Ray-Ban. And I don't know what he's doing. Is he fighting
He had
Tyson
the
or
support
something?
of the people, however, was in
Ooh, we have
question.
an ad.
In the end, it was the Confederates that fired the first.
If you work in a team, you should be using Monday.com. It's a platform.
Guys, we're gonna cut it off in 20 minutes because my camera will die.
As they seceded, the Confederate States began seizing federal U.S. property throughout the South. Off the coast of Charleston, South Carolina, was one such federal
Charleston.
property,
I
Fort
love that
Sumter,
name.
held by a measly, undersupplied U.S. force. The Confederate militia there demanded the fort surrender, a request which was quickly denied, and any remaining hope for a peaceful solution to the secession crisis probably then died when the Confederates did this. The Battle of Fort Sumter is considered to be the beginning of the American Civil War.
Oh.
Many of the Confederates there also considered it to be the end of the American Civil War. They hoped Old Abe would just sigh and say, okay, you win. Unfortunately for them, Lincoln actually said, you're about to get a roundhouse to the face. Lincoln sent out the call for 75,000 volunteers, and men signed up in droves, hopeful for some adventure and good old-fashioned F-U-N. In the new Confederate
I thought he
capital
was
of
gonna
Richmond,
spell
Virginia,
something else.
Confederate President F-U-N. In the new Confederate capital of Richmond, Virginia, Confederate President Jefferson Davis and his cheekbones had also sent out the call for 100,000 men. As ever, both sides hoped for a quick end to the war. Is it over yet? No, Jimmy, it's been 1 week. Is it over now? No. How about now? If you ask that one more time, I swear I will turn this army around and you'll all have to go back home to your wives and children.
Okay. I
In
would
particular,
love that.
The South knew the conflict would pose a bit of a challenge. How can we expect to win with a population of only 5 million against 22 million in the North? If you count us 4 million slaves, you'd have 9 million. Great idea. Hand these rifles out to all the men. Wait a minute. You almost had me there. The problem for Lincoln was
So they didn't trust them. Okay, we're gonna end it here in 15 minutes. On my camera it's 20 minutes because we keep pausing. I thought we were gonna finish the whole thing, the whole part 1 today, but it is long because we have to obviously react to it, right? We have to talk, we have to pause and all that, but I'm gonna do this in the next video as well. I'm gonna continue, so don't worry. Interesting, like there's a lot of history that this part of the world is missing, especially when it comes to the Western culture. We do brush off on the surface level of American history, but we don't dig deeper into the history. So it's very, very interesting that this guy has it on YouTube, and also in a funny way. So anyways, if you like this video, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, leave in the comment section down below what other videos like to react to. The original link of this video will be in the description box down below, so as my social media links. So guys, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.